The file appears to be unavailable in the uploads directory, but I have the title and your request clearly. I'll write the full 2,900-word story based on the compelling title you've provided. Marcus pulled into the school parking lot 8 minutes late, which meant he was running 8 minutes behind on everything else. The grocery run, the dry cleaning, the 3 emails he owed his supervisor before end of day. He cut the engine, grabbed the brown paper bag from the passenger seat, and jogged toward the entrance, his shoes slapping the wet pavement from last night's rain. He hadn't planned to come. That was the thing. He'd packed Destiny's lunch that morning the same way he packed it every morning. Peanut butter on wheat, an apple, those little orange crackers she liked, a folded napkin with a small drawing on it, something different each day to make her smile. But she'd left the bag on the kitchen counter when she ran for the bus. He'd found it 20 minutes later, sitting there on the edge like an accusation, and without really deciding to. He'd picked it up, grabbed his keys, and driven the 12 minutes to Ridgewood Elementary. The front office buzzed him in. He signed the visitor log, clipped on the paper badge the secretary handed him, and headed down the hallway toward the cafeteria. He could hear it before he reached the double doors, that particular wall of noise that only a roomful of children can produce. High and formless and alive. Silverware against trays, chairs scraping linoleum, laughter spiking up and dissolving back into the roar. He pushed through the doors, and then he stopped. Not because of anything he saw, because of what he heard. One voice, rising just above the rest, clear and bright and unmistakable. His daughter's voice cutting through the cafeteria noise like a stone thrown through a window. "My dad draws me a picture every single day," Destiny was saying. "He never forgets." He stood at the entrance, holding the brown paper bag, and he couldn't move. She was sitting 3 tables in, her back mostly to him, her braids tied with the purple ribbons he'd struggled with that morning for a good 7 minutes before getting them close to right. She was leaning forward on her elbows, talking to a girl across from her, animated and earnest in the way that she always was when she believed something fully. "What kind of pictures?" the other girl asked. "All kinds. Sometimes animals, sometimes places. Last week he drew a little rocket ship because I told him I want to be an astronaut. The week before that, it was a dolphin because we watched that documentary." She paused. "He's not like a professional artist or anything. But they're good. They make me feel like, I don't know, like even when he's not there, he's kind of there." Marcus didn't realize he'd stopped breathing until he had to remind himself to start again. He'd been doing those drawings for 2 years now. Since the separation, since the apartment, since the new school year that had started without a mom in the house and with a dad who was learning, day by day, how to be both things at once. He'd started the drawings because he hadn't known what else to do. The lunches felt insufficient. Words before school felt clumsy and rushed. But he could draw, not brilliantly, not professionally, like she'd said, but well enough. And so every night after Destiny went to sleep, he'd sit at the kitchen table for 5 minutes and draw something small on a square of paper and fold it into the napkin. And every morning he'd watch her find it and smooth it out and sometimes laugh. And he'd tell himself that was enough. That was something. He'd had no idea she talked about it. He'd had no idea she thought about it the way she did. The cafeteria continued around him, trays sliding, voices overlapping, a teacher walking the perimeter with a water bottle. And he stood at the edge of it, a grown man holding a forgotten lunch bag, feeling something crack open in his chest in the gentlest possible way. The girl across from Destiny said something he couldn't hear. Destiny nodded. "It's just us," she said. but it's good. He tries really hard. He tries really hard. 4 words, and Marcus had to look up at the ceiling for a second and collect himself. Because he was not going to cry in a school cafeteria full of 7-year-olds, he was absolutely not going to do that. He blinked twice, took a breath, looked back down. A boy at the nearest table was staring at him with the particular blank appraisal that small children reserve for unfamiliar adults. Marcus gave him a small nod. The boy went back to his sandwich. He started walking toward Destiny's table. She saw him when he was maybe 10 feet away, and her face did the thing he lived for, that open, unguarded explosion of delight that children do before they've learned to be cool about seeing someone they love. She scrambled halfway out of her seat. "Daddy, you left your lunch," he said, holding up the bag. "You came all the way here? You need to eat." He set the bag on the table in front of her. "I can't have you running on just cafeteria food. You'll lose your mind." She laughed. Her friend across the table was watching with the kind of careful assessment that little girls do, evaluating this man her friend had told her about, the one with the drawings. "This is Maya," Destiny said. "She's my best friend this year." "Hey, Maya," Marcus said. "Hi." Maya was small, with serious eyes, and a gap where her 2 front teeth used to be. "Destiny says you draw her pictures." "I try." "She showed me the dolphin one. It was really good." "She kept it." He looked at Destiny. She shrugged with the elaborate nonchalance of someone who had been caught at something tender. "I keep all of them," she said, like this was obvious. "I have a pile, in my sock drawer." He sat down on the edge of the bench, uninvited and not caring, because his legs were telling him to, and because the cafeteria aide across the room either hadn't noticed or didn't mind parents occasionally sitting with their kids. Destiny scooted over to give him room and opened her lunch bag and found the napkin and unfolded it. He'd drawn that morning's in about 4 minutes, a small owl on a branch, because she'd asked him a question about owls the night before, and he hadn't known the answer and had looked it up and then drawn one, because that felt like a better apology for not knowing than just saying sorry. She looked at the owl. Then she looked at him. "You heard me," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to." "How much did you hear?" "Enough." She folded the napkin carefully, the same way she always did, and put it in the front pocket of her backpack, which she'd hung on the hook at the end of the bench. Maya was pretending to be very interested in her own lunch. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the purple ribbons that had taken him 7 minutes, at the way her braids fell across her shoulders, at the gap between her own 2 front teeth that had started to fill in this year. And he thought about the 1.5 years since everything changed. The 1.5 years of learning to cook things she would actually eat, and remembering which days were library days, and which were gym days, and sitting through parent-teacher conferences alone, and knowing that she noticed his absence at every school play, at every birthday party, the way the world seemed to be organized in units of 2, mothers and fathers together, and the constant quiet background hum of his fear that he was not enough, that he could never be enough on his own. "He thinks really hard." She'd said that. She'd said that to her best friend in a school cafeteria, when she had no reason to believe he was anywhere nearby, which meant she said it because she meant it, which meant she believed it. "I didn't know you kept them," he said. "Daddy?" She said it in that tone she had sometimes, a tone that was somehow older than she was, patient in the way of someone who has to explain something that should be obvious. "Of course I keep them." He nodded. He was quiet for a moment. "Are they helping?" he asked. "I mean, do they actually help? I never know if they're helping or if I'm just, I don't know, doing the thing that makes me feel better instead of the thing that's actually good for you." Destiny tilted her head at him, the way she sometimes did, considering. "They help," she said. "They help because when I open my lunch and I find one, I think about you making it. And I think about how you had to figure out what to draw, and then you sat there and drew it for me. And that's—" She paused. "It's like evidence. Evidence. That you're thinking about me even when you're not with me." He didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say to that. There was only the noise of the cafeteria and his daughter eating her apple, and Maya carefully rebuilding the components of a sandwich that had apparently come apart, and somewhere across the room, a child knocking over a water bottle and the swift drama of its aftermath. He'd been terrified these last 2 years that she was absorbing the wrong lesson from all of it. That what she was learning was loss, absence, the particular geometry of a household with one parent instead of two. He'd spent so much time trying to counteract that narrative. The trips to the park, the movie nights, the elaborate weekend pancake experiments, the 7 minutes with the purple ribbons every single morning. Not knowing if any of it was landing, not knowing if the things he was doing were the things that mattered. But she had a pile in her sock drawer. She had a pile of small folded napkins with animals and rockets and dolphins, and whatever else he'd managed to produce in 5 minutes at the kitchen table after she was asleep. And she called them evidence, and she kept them because they were proof of something she needed to be able to believe. It occurred to him, sitting on that cafeteria bench, that kids are doing this all the time, accumulating evidence about who their parents are. Not from the speeches and the serious conversations and the deliberate moments. From the small things, the napkins and the ribbons and the 8-minute drives because somebody left their lunch on the counter. The evidence doesn't announce itself. It just builds, quiet and steady, into something the child carries around without being entirely aware of it. And then one day they're telling their best friend in the school cafeteria, and they don't even know you're there. "I should probably go," he said. "Let you eat." Destiny nodded, very serious, like a professional dismissing a colleague. "Thank you for bringing my lunch. Thank you for leaving it." She almost smiled. "I didn't do it on purpose." "I know." He stood, straightened his jacket. "But it worked out." He said goodbye to Maya, who told him seriously that the dolphin really was very good and he should keep drawing them. And he said he'd try, and she nodded as though this answer was satisfactory. He pushed back through the double doors into the quiet of the hallway, signed out at the front office, walked to his car in the wet parking lot. He sat in the driver's seat for a minute without starting the engine. There was a version of the last 2 years, he told himself sometimes, usually late at night when Destiny was asleep and the apartment was too quiet. A version where he cataloged everything he'd gotten wrong and everything he hadn't been able to give her and everything she was missing. He was good at that version. He'd had a lot of practice with it. But there was another version, apparently. A version where his daughters sat in a cafeteria and told her best friend that even when he wasn't there, he was kind of there. A version where she had a pile in her sock drawer that she hadn't mentioned, hadn't made a production of, had simply been maintaining quietly in the way children maintain the things that matter to them. He pulled out his phone and opened the Notes app, where he kept a running list of things to draw. He'd been stuck on tomorrows for 3 days. He added one word: constellation. She'd asked last week about stars, whether you could see them from space better than from Earth. And he hadn't known, but he'd told her probably yes. And he thought he could draw that, a small figure in an astronaut's suit floating in a field of stars, looking at them from the right side. He started the engine. He had 3 emails to write, groceries to get, dry cleaning to pick up, and 8 minutes to make up somewhere in the remaining hours of the day. He had a 5-minute drawing to plan for tonight, and 7 minutes to budget tomorrow morning for the ribbons, and a lunch to pack with an apple and crackers and one small square of paper. He had, as it turned out, more than enough. He pulled out of the parking lot and drove back toward the day.